Oh, Coach Eric Mangini is back, mocking me about my flag football playoff performance. A little bit shaky, I admit. We'll start with Brew. Brew, did the Cowboys look like a Super Bowl team?
Well, look, I said last week, Coach, that they will not reach the Super Bowl. I didn't say they don't have the talent to reach the Super Bowl, but I said somehow, some way, they will self-sabotage themselves.
But?
No buts. They do have the talent. I think they could be good or better than any team in the NFC. But I already see things. I don't need to hear Jerry Jones talking about a Super Bowl right after the game. We talked about this earlier. I don't need to see DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons tweeting at OBJ, come join us right after the game. All right? And there's football things too. I love the defense against the pass. They didn't solve their run issues yesterday. Dalvin Cook still went for 72 yards on like 11 carries. They just got so far ahead that they had to pass it. He only ran 3 times in the second half. So look, they got a great team, but I still am not sold that Dak, that Jerry, I think they still can self-sabotage.
I agree with some of the things you're saying. However, I think talking about yesterday's game, like, they still have some issues. It's the biggest win in the history of the franchise.
Fine.
They won. So they
answered every question for you.
In that game, I have no nits to pick. In that game, I think that was a pretty flawless performance on both sides of the ball. Dak completed 88% of his passes. Tony Pollard was sensational. The Cowboys once again showed, and this is to me their biggest strength, that if you have a single weak spot on the offensive line, they will just push on it until your team crumbles. Darisaw went out. That was a wrap for that football game. It's like, okay, we will just send Micah there, and when you double Micah elsewhere, we'll send DeMarcus there. And the Cowboys' ability to exploit teams that don't have 5 quality offensive linemen or have an offensive lineman out with an injury is something that I think does travel. I do agree with Brew in this regard. I mean, they play Thursday. They play in 3 days. And Jerry's talking about the Super Bowl. I also think that the team should be marketed as like the 3 Ps. Parsons, Pollard, Prescott. The reason they can't be is because that leaves Zeke out. And Jerry wouldn't let that be the case. I do think, though, if we remove the, call it non-football reasons to not like the Cowboys or not trust the Cowboys, they are putting together the body of work of a team you would say in this NFC this year that absolutely should be among the top of the conference. But I agree with you, Brew, that I'm uneasy about it because they're the Cowboys and because for a quarter century they've fallen short every single year.
Chris, I thought you made great points. I think there's nothing worse than after a big game having the owner come up and say, hey, we're Super Bowl ready. Why not add some more pressure and expectations of the team? Usually you're trying to keep those moderate so that you can just move on week to week. And your point's good, too, about the running game. They did a better job against the running game, but the game became so lopsided that you really can't tell whether or not it was fixed. And that's a serious problem. Now, there's a lot of things to like about this team. Obviously, what the pressure that they can put on a quarterback, the fact that they're one of the top teams in terms of generating turnovers, all the things that they're doing defensively. And my friend does not like me talking about the running game for some reason, but this is a formula early on in Dak's career that worked really well. When they run the ball like 25 to 30 times, they don't make it the Dak Prescott show. Then they've been extremely effective, and they've got 2 offensive tackles that are built for the running game and aren't great in the passing game. And then they don't pass the ball very well right now as it is. There are a lot of things to say, yeah, they could be in the Super Bowl mix. I don't love necessarily making that the mantra after a big win, and they were a little drunk on the win. But, Minnesota's coming off a big win. Dallas is coming off a big loss.
Which is why I'm very interested to see how, because the exact opposite now is the game on Thursday.
Right.
So this game was, the Cowboys had a terrible loss that they should have never had against the Packers up 14. The Vikings had this amazing win come from behind against Buffalo. Well, now Thursday, the Cowboys have this game where they look as good as any team in football's looked all year. The Giants have their worst game of the year this past weekend against Detroit, and now they play each other. So it's like the exact opposite
Dallas
situation.
Well, we are going to
loses, this
absolutely
will-
find out with Brian Daboll whether they have the running game problem solved. They are going to run the ball until Dallas can't take it anymore. So we'll see whether or not that's legitimately fixed.
Coach, can I show you a graphic on Micah Parsons?
Sure.
Yeah, 10 pressures, pressure percentage 37%, 2 sacks, obviously the one that kind of turned the game early with the forced fumble. Is it kind of too naive to say, like, hey, you know who needs to win the game against the Giants on Thanksgiving? That guy, Micah Parsons, like one-man wrecking crew. Can that be a strategy that works?
Yeah, but Brian Daboll and the Giants are going to look at it and say, okay, we can't let this guy ruin the game. And sometimes when you have a guy like that who's as effective as he is as a pass rusher, then you try to take him out of the opportunities to rush the passer, and you run right at him. You run at him. You put big bodies on him all the time, over and over again, and see whether or not he can hold up then. And then as the game goes on, he's also thinking about that more than he's thinking about rushing the passer.
Got you. Okay, on the other side of the ball, the 40-3 loss is the Vikings, which supposedly were being disrespected. Kirk Cousins threw for 105 yards, was sacked 7 times. Coach, was this team exposed?
I don't see it as necessarily being exposed. Look,
40-3.
they lose the way that I eat nachos. Like, I can't eat just one. I have to eat the whole tray, and that's the way they lose. They can't lose like the close games. They lose in gigantic, dramatic style.
But
and everything was going wrong yesterday. What, they have 6 penalties in the third quarter alone? It was one of those games where it became a slippery slope. And then
to me, it's more concerning than that, because now in the season they've been outscored. The Vikings have a negative point differential in the season, which I understand is not everything, but it is. Well, I get it, but it also means you've never blown anybody out. And I know it's not college football, but one of the reasons the committee values these things is because what is the committee not?
It's not the standings.
It's not the standings. The standings tell you the Giants and the Vikings are 15-5. The committee will tell you those two teams have been outscored by their opponents on the season combined. Here's the other real concern I have in Minnesota. So Minnesota, to me, has looked good 7 times this year. They're 8-2, but they have 2 losses, and the win against Detroit was awful. They got it, I give them credit, but they did not look good. It took a miracle at the end and some questionable Dan Campbell coaching decisions on kicking a field goal. In those 3 games, the 2 losses in the Detroit game, Justin Jefferson has 94 yards receiving total. In the other 7 games, he has 1,000. He is averaging 142 yards per game. The reason I say that's concerning is I think he is one of the 2 best receivers in football. He's great. But what we have seen is if you can slow him down, they have no counterpunch. They should, because Dalvin Cook once upon a time was great and Thielen once upon a time was very good. And Hockenson was supposed to be a big addition. He was bad yesterday, drops and penalties. If you can shut down Justin Jefferson, it does not look like the Vikings have any plan B. Now, he's so good, you can't usually shut him down. But do I believe in the playoffs someone's going to be able to shut him down? I do. That's my concern.
They are what we thought they were. I mean, let's just keep it real. They are what we thought they were.
I don't know if that's totally fair. After this loss, now they are what you thought they were.
Coach, they played 3 good teams, like really good teams this year. Philly beat them by what, 17? Dallas destroyed them. And Buffalo, they were down 17.
Fluky
Buffalo,
play.
it was a fluke.
You said really good team.
Yeah,
So they played 2
absolutely.
really
I'm throwing
good
the
teams.
Bills
Dallas
in there.
and
I'm throwing the Bills in there. But no, they are the 2020 Steelers. That's what they are. They were 11-0. We didn't really believe, and then we found out they finished 12-4 and lost in the wild card round. So that's who these Vikings are.
They play America's team again. Back-to-back battles against America's teams for the Vikings.
They play the Patriots.
Sunday night, Thursday night, Thanksgiving.
It won't be 40-3.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.